that is dedicated to Black history, as we know. Isn't it amazing that February is also the shortest month of the year? We're dressed for Black History Month on today, but we've mentioned Black history very little this month. We're a people with a rich history and heritage, as you heard them say. We're a people that have seen tumultuous times throughout our history. We're a people that's quite associated with struggle. So I would like to speak with you today, from the subject, keep telling our story. Look at someone and say, keep telling our story. Get that pointing finger, keep telling our story. Every one of us has a story to keep telling. My brothers and sisters, today of the chocolate hue, there are few seasons in our history where our struggle has been light. I would even venture to say that just for being born with black skin at all, that you will soon realize that you were born in a fight. None of us who were born with this black skin could do anything about it beforehand. None of us had a vote on what color our skin would or should be. We were born black on purpose, and there's nothing that we can do about it. God created each one of us, and it's been said that God is omniscient, which means that God is all-knowing. So it didn't take God by surprise when he created us that each one of us came out of our mother's womb on the chocolate side. God knew that each of us was going to be of the darker hue many ages ago. Before we were even formed in the belly, God knew what color each of us would be. So our blackness couldn't be a curse, as some claim. God didn't create us to be cursed. As black people, we're still created in the image and after the likeness of God himself. We're a beautiful people. We're a gifted people. We've survived a ton of struggles, and we're the better for having to do so. I do believe that a weaker people than us would have broken in no time at all. If other people had just gone through half of the struggles that come with wearing this black skin, they would have hollered louder than we had. Yet I will still boldly infer to each one of us on here today that black isn't a curse. We come from a great heritage. Despite our people's enduring of the horrible institution called slavery. Slavery was bondage. People most times are slaves against their will. They don't want to be slaves on their own volition. So slavery wasn't a thing of beauty. Slavery was free labor that helped most of this country to be built. Great wealth can be created when you have a labor force of back-breaking workers who work for little or no pay. This went on in this country for hundreds of years. This has made equality for our people a tough task to bring about. It's hard to catch up with others in a race to wealth when other people have had several hundred years of a head start. Other races have been able to leave legacy and pass down summer homes from granddad and grandma and granddad and grandmama, and great-granddad and great-grandma's legacy was passed on because they didn't have to pay their slave help. Because of several hundred years of mostly free black labor. The amazing thing in 2023 is that there are now movements that don't even want us to remember our struggles. Critical race theory. They don't want us to remember or even mention the things that they've done to us. They don't want us to document our struggles, to discuss our struggles, or even teach our children about the struggles of their people. Why would an oppressed people have to wonder why their entire place in history would be desired to be blocked, altered, or totally erased? Slavery, as awful as it was still a scourge that our people overcame. We rebuilt. We've overcome. We fought back. We picked up all of the broken broken pieces of our lives, and we kept pressing on. Well, my brothers and sisters, much history is just that, his story. Our story is great. Our story is bold. Our story is rich. Our story is grand. Our story is one of time's greatest stories. The Google machine states that storytelling establishes common ground and empathy. Our stories are powerful, like we heard today from Mother Bell and from Deacon Young. Those are powerful stories, and I'm sure each one of our families, the elders of each one of our families, could give us stories that take us back and show the lengths of things, the depths of things that we've had to overcome. Because stories evoke compassion even among strangers. Our stories can bring us closer. Our stories have the ability to unite us. Our stories can make us feel less alone. Our stories help us to better understand our brothers and sisters. It's hard to judge a man or a woman's walk if you don't fully understand the battles that they have already been through. So it's my mission on the day to keep telling our story. God is time's greatest ever editor, and God never sent a wire out that he desires for our story to be erased. Our story documents a people who have been quite resilient and never succumbed to the many tragedies, struggles, afflictions, attacks, and assignments of evil that have come our people's way. We simply went on. We simply moved forward, no matter what the hardship may be. We died in mass, but we still pressed on. Our story is the one that many don't want to be written. Our story is the story that many don't want to rightfully address. To this day, many don't want to debate mass inequities in wealth, privilege, or structural racism even to this very moment. We're the proud people who were promised 40 acres and a mule, and we still haven't got either of them. On this past week, the Shelby County Commission discussed using $5 million for reparations to blacks. And that's a minuscule amount for all of us at best. But even this small amount was contested by those who said that the paying of reparations would be un-American. Well, I would contend with that notion. The American government has paid out reparations before. We simply have to be truthful about this. The detractors to this Shelby County Commission proposal were so misinformed because someone had not given them the story. Author A. Kirsten Muller, and I'm trying not to step on any toes of other people, but I gotta keep walking, had pointed out that the United States government has paid reparations to Japanese families who were interned here during World War II. Our country paid reparations to families who lost loved ones during the September 11th attacks, and to Americans held hostage in Iran. The federal government even paid reparations to slave owners for the emancipation of their slaves in the midst of the Civil War. Thomas Kramer, associate professor at the School of Public Policy at the University of Connecticut, detailed how Germany reimbursed victims of the Holocaust and how Haiti was forced to pay reparations to slave owners. Saints, I'm not using this as some edict for reparations, but I am outlining the power of knowing your history and knowing the struggles of our people. One Shelby County Commissioner, Miska Clay Bibbs, and I don't know her personally, but she made me proud the other day on the news because the lady said it's un-American to have reparation. And Miska Clay Bibbs, she hollered like that sister holler. When you get that black woman holler, she had got on that last nerve. Because before I knew it, she had said that my people people are dying in the streets. Shelby County Commissioner Erica Sugarman also spoke up passionately for the plight of our people. On a side note, black women are out here in 2023 speaking truth to power. Where are the black men that once championed these causes? Brothers, are we too comfortable in our corporate jobs and our hustles to speak up when wrongdoing is present? Is our next move as black men to start sending our black women to hear that rumble in the dark late at night? Are we going to send her to the door to answer? I hope not. So let's get back on our job, brothers. The late Martin Luther King once said that the easiest way for evil to persist is for good men and good women to see it and do nothing about it, to see it and say nothing about it. How can we be so silent in such a pivotal moment in time? How can we not call out wrong? How can we not speak truth to power? How can we ignore our moment to cry loud and spare not? Our silence is deafening. Our coming generations are looking at our silence and they are bewildered by it. While they're searching for meaning, they see entire generations that are now seemingly less apt to tell our story. My brothers and my sisters, keep telling our stories, even if our story is a nightmare on living in these South Memphis streets. Tell it, proclaim it, be proud of the depths that we've risen from. We're not where we want to be, but we can't deny that God has brought each of us a mighty long way. It's amazing that some can feel no remorse or feel no depths to our people for the way that we have been treated for hundreds of years in this country. Some will even say that they rescued us from Africa. There are many people in this country's history that have had a God complex when it comes to our people. They want us to worship their history more than we would value the importance of our own history. The vestiges of the ills of white supremacy are too many to list or too many to name. Well, saints, the old scourge called white supremacy is still alive in 2023. We see it, we experience it, we live with it, we struggle with it every day, especially on the job. Oh, yeah, you do. But to keep up people, to deny a people the right to our own history is a thing that can't be ignored. Keep telling our story. Are there anybody that's going to tell the story today, or are you just going to wait till next year in 2024, February, to tell your black history story? And I know y'all saying this is church. He ain't put no scripture in there yet. But I'm going to catch it and you won't see it coming. If you can't tell it, then let me tell it. I'll tell it wherever I go. Albany Law School professor Anthony Park Farley, a former federal prosecutor, said that may be due to the fact that the systems of oppression that shackle and demean black Americans remain in place. Even if checks for reparations were cut tomorrow for the highest amount you could imagine, there are procedures in place for white power to recoup it all. So they give us $1 billion next week, and that billion will be right back in their pocket before the time is gone. The day after tomorrow, said Farley. Farley described how black Americans face higher arrest rates, lower wages. You started first, and they make more. We're the last one hired and the first one. Lower wages and a more fragile economic existence than their white counterparts. He attributed that to systemic defamation by the United States government on black Americans. Our government has a way of teaching everyone blacks people's place in society. We as lawyers are all familiar with reputational harm, and we know what defamation is. We know what it costs if you have a bad name, he said, but we don't think of the ways our government has for all these years has been producing a bad name for black people. Black people have such that a bad name that before a black person even gets to the job interview or walks into the dealership to buy a car or simply walks down the street, way before they have ever arrived, there are myths and stories that have been formed around them, and people have natural reactions to that. I know that they say all of us like the watermelon, but I don't eat much watermelon. So I mean, there are so many misconceptions about our people, so many times that we've been pressed and vilified. Farley said that defamation comes in the form of how the government itself sanctioned slavery and then segregation, and how the legal, education, financial, and medical systems in the country treat blacks. I read a study once that said black women get less attention at hospitals because it's perceived that black women can endure more pain. William A. Darity, a professor of public policy at Duke University, and I'm not going to put y'all to sleep, said that many Americans have come to see black suffering as morally correct. If we introduce a wealth program, we have to prepare for a violent response, said Darity. 30% of the population will resist any positive social change on behalf of black people. Darity noted that the 40 acres and a mule was only one way to measure reparations, and that alone would still amount to trillions of dollars, but 40 acres and a mule fails to take into account centuries of negative actions taken against our people. This is only one component shaping the wealth gap. There are also still the consequences of discriminatory home ownership programs, the destructive effect on black businesses of the federal highway program, and much more. They simply ran a highway through where our businesses and our homes were located. You think that wouldn't tear up a community? They just run a big old mass highway to your store that used to be prosperous, to your business that used to be good, to your church that was thriving, and they just come up and just start building right in front of your door, tearing up your neighborhood. Some still feel that we have no moral right to come up and do better. They will violently oppose black elevation. Do you remember Black Wall Street, a thriving business community in Tulsa, Oklahoma that was burned down? Then you have Rosewood, and even there were some things that happened in our own city back in the day. Some see our suffering as a moral thing, as if God himself desires for the feet of others to be placed upon our heads at birth. Is being born a black man, black, a sin that we committed? Are we a powerless people? Will we stay a permanent underclass? Are we ourselves responsible for the gaps in white wealth and black wealth? Have we permanently forsaken our physical chains only to have chains placed on our brains? Are we wrong for desiring of restorative justice for ourselves? Are we wrong for our desire of a systemic leveling of the playing field in the marketplace? Are we wrong for desiring to have our communities to be repaired? I will powerfully say heavens no. This isn't the end of our story. Our story is about to turn for the better. Our story is a powerful one, and if our story is told right, it will make an impression on you that will last a lifetime. God throughout the Bible has defended the oppressed. I don't believe that he's resigned from that job. God has been the defense of our people for ages. He has brought us through many dangers, toils, snares, and hard trials. God has brought us through many dangers, that some that we saw and some that we didn't. I know that you're wondering where the word from the Lord will come from today, so I had to find a people whose trials and tribulations mirror those of our people. I found that in Exodus 1, Exodus 1, verses 8 through 12. It says this: Now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that where there falleth out any war, and they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so we give them up our land. Therefore they did set up over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more that they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. Saints, there are plans that are now being hatched against us even now. But we don't die as quickly as we multiply. No matter what they throw at us, or no matter how much they desire to whitewash our history, our story is worthy to be told. Our stories can transform us. Our storms can connect us. Our stories can help us through difficult times. Our stories teach us lessons. Our stories can cause us to think differently. Our stories can make us to move differently. Our stories will evoke compassion and empathy for people we otherwise would not know. Keep telling our story. Keep telling our story. Our story is a comeback story that God is still putting the finishing touches on. Let's keep telling our story, and then let's keep telling his story. How a living Christ died so we wouldn't have to bear the full weight of our transgressions. When we've been counted out time and again, God counted us back in. We don't have to tell stories that will only resound with defeat. God is publishing our stories as stories of victory. Saints of God, we can all look back over our lives and see all the things and the depths that we've been through. The black story is a positive story. We would already be dead and gone for if we were any other people whose God's hand wasn't upon. The Bible said in his word that our story is not over. God has spoken over our lives, and God has an amazing finish and amazing climax to our story. What's been important to our story over the years is that we held on to God. We trusted God. We trusted God at times that we couldn't trace him. We could have called it all over in Middle Passage as millions of people litter the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, where we die by millions, where we have a dollar that comes into our community and lasts less than 8 hours, and the Jewish community has money, and it's 3 or 4 weeks before their money leaves. You can't get a loan at the bank, but they come out the first thing smoking, and some people can borrow, and they set up businesses right in your hood. Super Bowl Sunday, the same folks that own M&K, they're opening an eyelash place, they opening a makeup place, and they ain't got nobody in mind but you and you. Saints of God, keep telling our story. They made you hate your big old lips, and now people pay thousands for it. They made you hate that you had some junk in the trunk, you. Saints of God, they'll stay in the sun on multiple hours to get that thing that God gave you and gave you free. Saints of God, keep telling our story. Our story is rich. My father's rich in houses and land. He holds the wealth of the world in his hand. He's got rubies, he's got diamonds, he's got silver and gold, and he had his coffers are full with riches untold. And I'm telling you on this Sunday morning that I'm a child of the King, that Jesus is my big brother, God is my heavenly Father, and the devil ain't no kin at all. Saints of God, those bells, they did without, and yet they press forward. Those McClatchy voices, they didn't have it all, but they kept on pressing. Those youngs, they kept pushing. Those boat rides kept moving on. We didn't have it all, but they kept on pushing. And the Woodses don't know how many of them there were, but you didn't go to sleep hungry. Saints of God, we got a rich legacy. We got an awesome heritage. How many of you are bold enough to tell your story? Ron DeSantis, I hear you talking, and you say that our AP, African American, is junk, but our story's a rich story. Ain't no everybody knows who we are. The thing that they don't want you to know is they don't want you to know who you are. You're the son of kings. You're a king's king, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood. You come from a top people. You come from a great people. God's hand has kept us. Rhythm is in our bones. We dominate the music field. We dominate the athletic field. You are not cursed. You're just cursed. You're cursed. Say it one time with me. I'm cursed, but I'm not cursed. Tell our story. Tell them that we don't have to walk around with our pants hanging down. We come from a noble people. We come from a people that's been blessed since time began. I'm telling you, some of us look like we have absorbed 150 million midnights. What they call that thing, what do they call the special thing about us? Janisha, what do they call that X factor that we have in our skin? Or that precious melanin thing. It's precious. God has made us precious. God has made us special. They talking about you, but they're longing to be you. Saints of God, tell your story. How many tellers do we have on this last Sunday of Black History Month? Are you bold enough to tell your story? You came back. He died for us. He moved us. I believe that Jesus died to get us out, to pull us up from Reconstruction. He died to get over us having the white water fountains and the black water fountains. He died so we can move up and don't have to sit on the back of the bus. Died to bring us out of robbing Peter, to lay Paul, to dodge Andrew, to run from Mark and skip by Matthew. Saints of God, we have a proud heritage. We are a proud people. If you believe that, let's stop racism. Let's stop structural inequities. Let's stop white supremacy on the head on this morning. I'm glad, and I'm saying to you that I'm black and I'm story wherever I go. God did this. God made us for better. Let me hear you. Praise